Good afternoon. Good afternoon. If you can please take your seats, and I don't want you to calm down too much because it's after lunch. So let me go ahead so we can start this particular session, please. If you will take your seats, please, out of the aisles and sit down. Because I know if you were presenting, you'd like people to be calm when you're presenting. So this is our fourth session. And because our theme was more than a walkout, Richard Allen as a social justice leader, I've invited Dr. Nicole Phillips. Her bio is in the program, so I'm not going to belabor it by reading because I know people can read it. You already read it anyway. You Googled her before you got here. I'm real clear. And she is one of my faculty colleagues at Candler. She's an author. She travels internationally to present information on social indicators, social justice, patriotism. If you have a chance, her book is listed in the program, Patriotism, Black and White, The Color of American Exceptionalism. It says it's a nationally recognized work, but the year that was published, it was the #1 book in that category. And so she knows what she's talking about. She is the director of the Black Church Studies program also at Candler, and she is an ordained elder who is a part of the 6th District. So if you will help me welcome Dr. Nicole, before I do that. She's going to present, and then we will have to listen to see how much time we have, or if we have time for question and answers, because we don't want to push things back too far, okay? And so if you will please welcome Dr. Nicole Phillips.
Thank you all for having me, Bishop Mitchell, Supervisor Mitchell, presiding elders present, Dr. Fry Brown, thank you for the invitation. I'm gonna ask us to start the slide presentation. So on today, you've had an opportunity to hear and listen to different presenters talk about more than a walkout. So Bishop Richard Allen, we've always connected him to St. George's Church in Philadelphia, and from understanding him in terms of biblically as an exegete, as a preacher. Then we had our phenomenal preachers move us beyond the walkout, and now I'm talking about him in terms of his social and political activism. But I want to contextualize him as a son of America's Revolution, a founding father of the early republic. Next slide, please. Can you click on that YouTube link, please? Can you hear? Can they hear?
The most complete, unexpected, and remarkable of any in the history of nations. Objects of the most stupendous magnitude, and measures in which the lives and liberties of millions yet unborn are intimately interested, are now before us. John Adams.
We were locking our film on the Vietnam War, and just as we had decided to do that as we were locking the film on the Second World War, I just had this thought: the next war we had to do was the American Revolution. As horrible as wars are, they tell us hugely important things about who we are and the period that we're in. You begin to realize that the whole question of this American project, which has been my project, is born in the revolution. And to ask questions of the revolution seemed absolutely imperative.
War never follows the script that you have written for it when you set out to make war. The British objective is first and foremost to suppress the rebellion. It's to teach the schools a lesson. It's to force them to acknowledge the primacy of Parliament and the authority of the king. And so now the decision has been made that we will use force. And there's a presumption that it won't take much. But it's going to go on for 8 years. 8 years, blood, treasure, catastrophe, really, for the British Empire.
The revolution is obviously, in some ways, the central, most important war in our history. All wars leave us with myths. What did Patrick Henry actually say? What was Paul Revere's Midnight Ride actually about? What happened in the Boston Tea Party? Did Washington cross the Delaware in the daytime or the nighttime? Who made the first flag? When did the war start and when did the war end? It's been an extraordinary journey to try and tell the story about our founding, about our origin story.
I think to believe in America, rooted in the American Revolution, is to believe in possibility. That to me is the extraordinary thing about the patriot side of the fight. I think everybody on every side, including people who were denied even the ownership of themselves, had the sense of possibility worth fighting for.
When we think about war in our lifetime, it tends to be away from the United States. A lot of people, a lot of Americans have lived through war, but it's not in our backyard, typically. This war was.
What we have to first understand is that it's a civil war. Maybe a quarter of all the civilians in the colonies are loyalists and remain loyal to the crown and the laws, and they don't want to upset the apple cart. So this is a bloody, bloody civil war.
The loyalists are essentially the conservatives. They're the people who believe in law and order. They don't like mobs. They don't like committees telling them what to do. They don't see King George III as a tyrant.
We are preparing for war. To fight with whom? Not with France and Spain, whom we have been used to think are natural enemies, but with Great Britain, our parent country. My heart recoils at the thought. Andrew Elliott.
The American Revolution is our story. It's everyone's story. It's where the country began, and so much of who we are today came from the story of the American Revolution. The revolutionary generation thought about us, the unborn millions. We talked about posterity. In 1777, John Adams wrote to his wife Abigail and said, "Posterity, you will never know what it costs the present generation to preserve your freedom." And I think this is our opportunity to let our present generation know what they did, what they went through, and how much it matters to us today that they did.
This is a young war. George Washington is in his 40s, Thomas Jefferson is in his 30s. People fighting the war are 14 to 50. It is a young country and a young war. They were rebellious, feisty, youthful patriots trying to figure it out. The people we all have heard of in grade school, middle school, high school, maybe studied in college, and all the people we haven't heard about, whose histories haven't been told. War exposes the best and the worst in all of us. It inspires and repels us. War is, unfortunately, the history of the human experience.
It turns out this film is arriving just before the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And so we're very happy to have our film come out in advance of that to help lead what we hope is a much more dynamic conversation, one that is not sort of suffused with nostalgia, but something that has a little bit more complexity. I think everyone will find something to identify with, because the story is our story, and it is not just one set of us, it's all of us. And that's the story that we've struggled for a long time to try to tell.
Next slide, please. I know you must be wondering, why would I begin there when I'm talking about Richard Allen? Because if we're going to talk about more than a walkout, we must begin to think about him as one of the founding fathers of our nation. I know that we like to, because we were enslaved in the North as well as the South during the time of the fighting of the American Revolution, we often like to discount July 4th or Independence Day as not relevant to us. But then we end up discounting those Africans, Black Americans, who actually invested in fighting for freedom from the British. And so I want to shift our thinking about Bishop Richard Allen as not just a religious leader, but a Black founding father. The next slide, African Americans and the cause of American independence. Talk of liberty gave thousands of slaves high expectations, and many were ready to fight for a democratic revolution that might offer them freedom. In 1775, 10 to 15 Black soldiers, including some slaves, fought against the British at the battles of Lexington and Bunker Hill. Two of these men, Salem Poor and Peter Salem, earned a special distinction for their bravery. By 1776, however, it had become clear that their revolutionary rhetoric that the revolutionary rhetoric of the Founding Fathers did not include enslaved Blacks. The Declaration of Independence promised liberty for all men, but did not end slavery. And even though they were great fighters, the Continental Congress did not allow Black soldiers to join the army. Let me put a caveat. Initially, General George Washington did not allow Black men into the Continental Congress Army, yet they were fighting, they were in infantry positions in the Continental Navy. And as the Revolutionary War progressed, of course things changed because they needed bodies. And so Black men were allowed to fight in the war. So Africans at the time, when they say African, we say African Americans now, but Africans who were Americans did fight for the cause of independence of this nation from the British. They said it in the film. Why is this year especially important? Because it's the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And I think it's interesting that in the 250th year of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, we are faced with an unfinished revolution. We are living through complex times, right? And our speakers pointed that out earlier. And especially now, this question about what it means to be American, what does it mean to be American, and what does it mean to be Black in America during this time is especially important as we are about to celebrate 250 years of the Declaration of Independence. Next slide, please. And so I enter this conversation about Richard Allen, and I know we say Bishop Richard Allen, no disrespect, but he was Richard Allen originally. In 1777, John Wesley, the founder of American Methodism, asked the question, has any man living a right to use another as a slave? 1777, at the tender age of 17, Richard Allen gets religion. He experiences a religious awakening via a conversion experience. He embraces the Methodist faith, even though American Methodism would split into northern and southern branches because of antebellum debates over slavery. He remains a Methodist because John Wesley, who was originally Anglican and a British Methodist, was the founder of American Methodism. And he expressed a fervency about the transatlantic anti-slavery movement. Next slide, please. Richard Allen gets religion at critical moments in the United States and North America. We have the Revolutionary War happening, we have religious revival happening, the itinerancy of Methodist horsemen moving from camp meeting to camp meeting, and in the camp meetings, there are enslaved blacks who end up being converted to Methodism because of the promise of spiritual equality, but also social equality, as well as the beginnings of anti-slavery resistance. There is a question about Richard Allen and if he was born south of the Mason-Dixon line in Delaware, or if he was born north of the Mason-Dixon line. Either way, he was born during colonial times. So he was a colonial slave, not a Civil War slave, okay? Allen experiences a 6-year journey from enslavement to religious conversion to being a freedman. So as he is experiencing this spiritual awakening, there is a secular journey going on. He's going from bondage to freedman. Methodist preaching convicts Allen's second slave master, Stokely Sturgis, to eventually release his slaves from bondage and offer Richard Allen a contract for freedom. And I smile at this because when you read about Richard Allen, you realize Richard Allen was crafty. It wasn't that Sturgis wrote a contract of freedom. Richard Allen kind of, the Sturgises were an older couple, and he planted a little bit of a seed and said, hey, do you want the Methodist revivalists to come to the plantation? And at this time, Burgess is in Delaware, and of course they agree. And upon agreeing, Sturgis gets convicted about holding slaves. And this gives Allen opportunity to draw up his contract of freedom. Allen signs a 5-year contract with Sturgis for payment of $2,000 starting in 1780, and pays the final installment a whole year and a half early in 1983. He wanted to make sure that he was free. 1780 to 1783. Because the American Revolution claimed the fight for liberty, natural rights, and equality. His certificate of manumission ended up being deposited into the Pennsylvania Abolition Society, into their master files. It was the first, and it remains the first, manumission agreement on file. Next slide, please. And so during this revolutionary time, Richard Allen is known for building Black-led institutions in early national America. As a Black founding father of America, we know about the founding of the Free African Society, a mutual aid society, a benevolent organization that he co-founded with Absalom Jones and 6 other men. He asked the question and pressed the question, where would free Blacks turn for educational or financial support, as well as fugitive slaves? The Free African Society was dedicated to community action without regard to religious principles. We understand that his faith undergirded his social activism, but he was so forward-thinking that they found the Free African Society as what we would understand today as a community-based or nonprofit organization to the benefit of the community. It was committed to communalism. Emerging Black leaders and Black founders wanted to link racial uplift with an African past or heritage. There's this communal ethic of responsibility that was part of Blacks' African heritage that made cooperative organization a cultural practice. It was founded on caring for the needs of the community and encouraging civic participation, as well as ensuring educational resources. Communalism, what does that sound like to you? When do we practice, when do we often lift up communalism if we're not practicing it? Huh? Okay. More definitive. Kwanzaa. Hello. Kwanzaa. Unless when we are lifting up the principle of Kwanzaa, it's really hallowed symbolism. Kwanzaa is meant to be a practice of, a continual practice of this communalism that shaped the free and undergirded the Free African Society. The Free African Society was also, it was Afrocentric, and it was a lobbying group. It was created during a time of great political activity in American culture and a backdrop of nationalist movements in Western culture. It offered Blacks an opportunity to work as a nation within a nation. We hear the term later on with Black sociologist E. Franklin Frazier, but this concept of being a nation within a nation starts during the revolutionary moment. Next slide, please. I'm not going to review the walkout because we know the walkout, but why was the walkout important? And why was this more than just a walkout? Next slide, please. It was important because with the founding of Mother Bethel, Richard Allen continues to build Black-led institutions. Now, there's a certain mythology and lore about the founding of Bethel AME. Of course, we're not denying what happened at St. George's Church, yet some scholars believe that Allen, before 1787, was continually planting the idea of an independent African church. And everything coalesced around this idea that he had planted. When he started attending St. George's, there was just a mere 40 Black members, and he would have many revivals, and he would go throughout the community. And he ended up, as well as, of course, we always say one person, but we always know that people work in relationship. He ended up increasing the numbers, which created a certain level of fear amongst the white members of St. George's Methodist Episcopal Church that then coalesced into the moment where they're being pulled up from their knees as they are praying, and they end up walking out. The importance of the founding of Bethel AME is because it also contributes to the building of Black-led institutions at that time, Black autonomous institutions, which stood for racial uplift, spiritual and social equality, while challenging institutional slavery. The AME Church then later on serves as a model of Black independent movements globally. And the African Church, as a white religious leader scoffed, begins to exemplify newly found racial pride, a fight for Black citizenship as the site for democratic activity. Next slide, please. He continues with this, creating free Black communities in early national America. Up and down the Atlantic seaboard, free Black communities formed not so much around single leaders, but around churches, reform institutions, and kinship networks that included leaders like Allen, community organizers like James Dexter, and unheralded community activists like Allen's first and second wives, Flora and Sarah Allen. Now, I want us to pause. When we talk about Bishop Richard Allen, we often do not raise the fact that he couldn't have done what he did without the women who was there supporting the work, including his wives. Okay? Both of them followed him out of segregated St. George's and supported the creation of Mother Bethel. Now, we know that Flora ends up passing away after 11 years of marriage. And his future second wife, Sarah Bass, was widowed and was part of that original group of people who assisted in the founding of Bethel AME Church, and he ends up marrying Sarah. So, during the founding of this nation, we have a Bishop Richard Allen, or a Richard Allen, who is central in creating Black-led institutions more than a walkout. Next slide, please. We also know him as a social reformer. My dear friend, it has pleased God to visit the city with the malignant and contagious fever, which infects white people of all ranks, but passes by persons of your color. I have therefore taken the liberty of suggesting to you whether this important exemption, which God has granted to you from a dangerous and fatal disorder, does not lay you under an obligation to offer your services, to attend to the sick who are afflicted with this malady. Such an act in your society will, and he crosses this out, render you acceptable to, be very grateful to the citizens, and I hope pleasing to the light of God, who will see every act of kindness done to creatures, whom he calls his brethren, as it is done to himself. The yellow fever epidemic, and that was written by Benjamin Rush, who was one of the who was a physician and one of the signatories to the Declaration of Independence. The yellow fever outbreak in Philadelphia in 1793 was one of the worst in history. 4,000 to 5,000 deaths occurred. Benjamin Rush solicited the assistance of Richard Allen, as well as his colleagues, in this time of distress, because he believed that Blacks were immune to the illness, which we later learn is not true. They died at the same numbers and rates as whites, but it took longer to be diagnosed. Rush also believed God created the illness as a tool for Blacks to win whites over to the anti-slavery cause. Does this sound familiar to you? COVID. Allen and Jones understood Russia's implied message. You must help our white citizens because of the support they have offered regarding the anti-slavery movement. Black Philadelphians, including Allen and Jones, volunteered to nurse the sick and to prove Black civic-mindedness and engagement, to counteract notions of Black incapacity to serve their white neighbors, and to demonstrate their ability to be virtuous citizens. Allen and Jones mobilized Black Philadelphians, but faced severe racial prejudice, as did other Black aid workers, as they provided aid to the sick, administered burials, took care of the needs of orphans, even though many Black residents were unable to flee the city. The wealthier white residents ended up leaving with their slaves. The Black residents did not have the means to leave. Despite their service, though, Matthew Carey publishes a pamphlet accusing Black volunteers of profiting and stealing from white citizens they are nursing back to health. Richard Allen, as a social reformer, refutes Matthew Carey's pamphlet. They respond to Carey's careless comments by co-authoring their own pamphlet addressing racial accusations during the epidemic and vigorously defending Black Philadelphians and volunteers against the slander. Their pamphlets served multiple purposes: defending Black citizens, establishing leadership, promoting Black civic engagement or participation, more than a walkout. Their literary efforts, marking a significant step in African American print culture, would become the first federally copyrighted that would make them the first federally copyrighted Black authors in the United States in 1794. They would become participants in what we understand as Black modernity, demonstrating and defining the elements of modern a modern American democracy. Through the ability to debate issues in the public sphere. In addition, their use of the printer was revolutionary. To print their pamphlets, it was akin to what we use as our internet now. Always the forerunner. Social reformer. Next slide, please. As a social reformer, he was also a moral reformer, what was understood as a mediator. Black leaders like Allen became mediators of African American political life. Mediators in the New Republic used print media to interface with a broad range of constituencies or people. These early national leaders reprinted sermons, wrote newspaper articles, essays, and political speeches to enter political life through these mediating activities. They were adept in understanding American political life and aided in the political transformation of America into a Jeffersonian republic. This idea that government should be lean, limited, and constitutionally bound. Now, as I said before, Richard Allen was crafty. And as you can see, two free Black men, John Joyce and Peter Mathias, end up murdering a white woman. And Richard Allen ends up publishing confession pamphlets, the Confessions of John Joyce and the Confessions of Peter Mathias, to address racial stereotypes of wild and marauding free blacks, stereotypes that he thought would resurface amongst the white Philadelphian citizenry. The pamphlets figured prominently in Allen's Black leadership, racial politics, and moral mediation. Rather than lecturing the free Black community about the crime and/or delivering a critique of white racial sins, Allen expands the scope of the topic to address the loss of virtue in a developing and new American republic. Doing so allows him to emphasize moral uplift within the Black community, promote moral responsibility among Black as well as white Americans. He links moral reform to a broader interracial moral reform movement that was struggling against immorality, vice, and sin, and that was striving to make America a moral republic. Allen ultimately believed that moral behavior was essential for Blacks to gain respect and rights in American society. More than a walkout, a social reformer, a moral reformer, and a mediator. Next slide, please. We the people does not mean you. Does not mean you. Does not mean you. Next slide, please. Jones and Allen circulate a petition throughout the city's African churches and reform groups. Those 73 Afro-Philadelphians signed the petition, the literate for much of the illiterate in some cases, stating that the petition reflects 700,000 of the African race, which was a number of African Americans in the country, according to the 1790 census. This Black abolitionist petition, forwarded to Congress in mid-December 1799, has three goals: a congressional ban on overseas slave trade, repeal of the Fugitive Slave Law Act, and national consideration of gradual abolitionism. Because what we know, often when we think about slavery, we're really thinking about it in the southern states. 1863 was the Emancipation Proclamation for southern states. Gradual abolitionism occurred in the northern states much earlier, in the early 1800s. The petition was meant to test African Americans' claims to national citizenship. The free Blacks who signed the petition considered themselves equal objects of representation under the Constitution. In other words, we the people, according to them, included us. The petition was received by a range of responses from congressional members, from outright anger towards outright anger about them federally petitioning their rights, to what was subscribed by a number of people who cannot even sign their names, to the petition being subversive and unconstitutional, with the outstanding response by a Georgian representative who snared, "We the people does not mean them." But Reverend Richard Allen, by this time, expresses a Black Christian nationalism and patriotism. Next slide, please. And white people's rebuke of this Black patriotism and nationalism, civic participation, greatly impacted Black founders and leaders like Absalom Jones and Richard Allen, who questioned the deeper meaning of the responses. Just what was Black patriotism and nationalism? Could African Americans ever hope to participate in the rights of American citizenship? Are these questions we still ask ourselves? Would free Blacks forever be politically marginalized, making alternative protest ideologies more attractive? In making moral claims on the American Republic and depicting abolitionist efforts as thoroughly patriotic, anti-slavery efforts as thoroughly patriotic, Black founders tried to show that the dual projects of racial uplift and American nation building, including Black citizenship, were not incompatible. Next slide, please. And so I end with Bishop Richard Allen finding a place for Black nationalism and patriotism, room for Blacks participating in the nation-building project, while also showing love for community and Black interests. This is often quoted, and I just saw it in the Christian Recorder article about what is happening. Did y'all read that? Okay. The Christian Recorder just wrote an article about some of the paraphernalia and artifacts that are representative of Bishop Richard Allen being taken down in the park services because of an executive order. So go back and read so all of this is coming up at the right time because Richard Allen, Bishop Richard Allen, found a place for Black nationalism and patriotism. And that, frankly, is an unpatriotic act. This land which we have watered with our tears and our blood is now our mother country. Frederick Douglass comes after Bishop Richard Allen and hails him as the architect of a new Declaration of Independence, resting on the notion that Black nationalism can thrive alongside Black patriotism together. And so this move beyond the walkout shows that Bishop Richard Allen, through his religious leadership and political activism, moved beyond the walkout by being involved in interracial collaboration and mediation. He emphasized Black civic participation and involvement, believed in moral uplift and social reform, as well as leadership, articulated a Black patriotism and nationalism, used print media, which played a central role as a tool for protest. And even though there were challenges and resistance to Black equality and independence, Allen faced these challenges from within the Black community and with the assistance of, because Bethel didn't get built without funding from his white partners, making him hopeful about racial redemption and justice. More than a walkout. More than a walkout. Okay. Any questions? Yes.
I'm curious. Do the Ken Burns of the world recognize Allen and how was he recognized in some of his works? You showed the excerpt from the Ken Burns film. Yes, and I was wondering, does he appear in any of Ken Burns' works?
I haven't watched the film. I haven't watched the film, but I take note that they do recognize towards the end of the trailer that the American project has been problematic for blacks and other people, Native Americans and other people of color. So I believe that they would be responsible enough to now I don't know if they're going to recognize Bishop Richard Allen. Oh, I don't know if they're going to recognize Bishop Richard Allen. Yeah, I don't know if they're going to recognize Bishop Richard Allen, but the recognition that the American project from revolutionary times has been problematic because we weren't free. So yeah, I don't know if he recognizes that, but
Yeah, I saw the film and I didn't see him in the film.
well, you know what? I'm presenting something that's new and different. I'm saying that Bishop Richard Allen is a founding father. So I'm not expecting a lot of people to write about him as a founding father.
You the presenter. I'm just
Oh.
I'm moving for the questions. I'm serving as an arm bearer.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to ask this question. In as radical as Reverend Richard Allen was at that time, we're familiar that slavery in the North was taking place. So I'd like to ask this question here. Was the idea of lynching less popular in the North than it would have been in the South? I mean, certainly with Richard Allen's radical views, looked like he would have been at the top of the list. So
which is why he was deliberate about working towards his manumission a year and a half early, just in case something happened with Sturgis. Because yes, he could easily fall into Southern slavery, and those papers would mean nothing. That's why he worked so hard and made sure that the papers were deposited in a safe place, and that Mr. Sturgis also gave him a pass, because right after he gets his papers, he's an itinerant minister, not ordained, because he got ordained in 1799, but he travels throughout the North preaching and teaching. Yes, manumission protected him, but being strategic really protected him. Because manumission, if his owner had died, it would be a problem.
Please thank Dr. Phillips for the presentation. Thank you. I'll hand over to the bishop.
It's been a rich day. It's been a rich day. Again, we thank each of you for sharing today and for your commitment. Dr. Lewis Logan, he has written a book, amen. We're getting ready to go, amen, into our next session. We want our preacher to be able to have a moment to get ready for tonight, amen, because she's heard all of the preaching that's been going on and all of the teaching that's been going on. She wants to go and tighten the ship, amen, to make sure that we close out. Dr. Logan, take a second and tell us what you have here, amen. He's a part of us.
Thank you so much. And it was kind of surreal, Bishop, and thank you so much to kind of walk through this presentation today as a AME pastor on loan to the United Methodist Church, as my wife is the Episcopos in Mississippi, to kind of traverse both communions and to have written a book with her on the Lenten devotional together, both of us coming out of our own traditions and bridging both congregational experiences. It was kind of surreal because there is the sense that there is the narrative, controlling the narrative, embracing the narrative, and then we are commenting on it in a contemporary context. And so our book, Bishop Sharma is more in terms of her personal kind of walk through the Lenten core experiences and discipleship disciplines. And I'm kind of more coming from the prophetic standpoint, so more AME, she's kind of more UMC. So it's kind of an interesting way that we traverse the two. And I thank you for accepting, as we've gifted you one, because we're really excited about the fact that the two of you as a couple represent Episcopal excellence in that sense. And we work in Mississippi to do the same, as of course the disaffiliation of the various churches. And our objective is to provide a framework by which we really grapple with what it means to be a disciple of Jesus in a time of such tremendous tectonic changes that are taking place. And so I want to thank you so much for the opportunity. I have just 4 left for those of you who might want to purchase. They're $20 each, and I will personally sign these. Thank you so much, Bishop. God bless you.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you for the forward. Please see the forward that Bishop wrote. And I just want to encourage y'all, because Bishop encourages writing. So I want to thank you, because you encourage scholarship and writing. And when we asked you for a quote, it didn't take a million years to do that. We had a deadline. Thank you so much for responding.
Amen. Let's give him a hand. Amen. We want to support our own. Yes, if you desire to have a workshop done, Dr. Fry Brown shared with us earlier that she has a grant. She's willing to come wherever we are, just for the asking. And I don't know how you feel about it, but I would ask. And she's not charging you anything, but she's going to bring the speakers. The same ones that have been here today. They're ready. They're ready. Aren't y'all ready? They're ready. Amen. Because the truth of the matter is they didn't get it all out today. And they had so much more that they wanted to say, and they want to say what else they left out. So invite them to come. Amen. Invite them to come. Amen. Let's give them all another hand today. We're grateful and we're thankful. Reverend Barber, are we ready? Yes, sir. All right, let me ask Reverend Barber and Dr. Dozier to come, amen, for our next session before we break for this afternoon.